Hi, everybody. In the second discussion board this week, you are asked to think of a hypothetical situation in which you're working for a company and you do a lot of work. And you look around and you notice that other people don't work as hard as you are. But perhaps they're getting promotions and or awards that you're not recognized for. And so the prompt itself gives you a certain number of options of things that you could do as you look around and examine what's going on. The first thing I'd like to note here is that in this course, you can feel free to present your own option. You don't have to feel limited by the 4 options that are presented there. The other thing that you might notice is that the initial post for this prompt is supposed to be 250 words. And it says, identify the response that you are going to take in relation to the fact that you don't feel like you're being acknowledged for what you're doing at work. So obviously, if you just identify an example, for example, one of them I believe is to roll your eyes at other workers and judge them. Well, that's not 250 words. So what are some things that you can do to reach that word count? Well, one thing that I would like to recommend that you do is utilize the ethical theories that you learned in week 1 to support your analysis of what you ought to do in this example. So for example, let's say that I am going to take on an ethical egoist position and say that what I'm going to do in this situation is whatever is best for me. And in this case, when somebody else gets credit for something that I've done, I'm going to be quick to point out that I actually did that work and that this person is taking credit for the work that I've done. Because that's what's going to be in my own self-interest. So then you might use the ethically egoistic approach to explain why you're taking that approach. Because think of it this way, if you could also present an ethically egoistic perspective from the opposite side, right? Let's say that you've done a bunch of work, and I'm sure we've all done this, right? You do a bunch of work at work, and maybe you do it for somebody who's in a higher position than you are, like your boss or your manager or something. And rather than pointing out that you've done the work when your boss or manager takes credit for it, you remain silent. That also might be in your own best interest. So it might be good to provide support or provide the work for your professor or for your boss or for someone else with the knowledge that in the long run, what you're doing is going to help you to either move up in the company or perhaps to build colleagues and allies within the company, your job or your school or whatever it might be that will then pay off in the future. So it seems like you could analyze these issues from multiple perspectives, and if you find yourself not being able to fill up the content, you can present those multiple perspectives both in support and against your own position. As you respond to other people, utilize the theories that you've learned in week 1 to critique perhaps their positions on the issues or to present different perspectives. So going back to my example, let's say that somebody said, well, I'm going to do what's ethically egoistic for myself, and I'm going to stand up for the work that I did, and when my boss tries to take credit for it, I'm going to say, no, sorry, Stephen, or whatever, you didn't do that work, I did the work. Now, most of us would say, yeah, we've been there, and that's not the best thing to do, right? It's never good to put your boss on blast in front of everybody else and try to humiliate somebody. That's a very dangerous place to live if you're inside of a business or inside of any kind of community. So you might present an antithetical perspective that says, yeah, well, you use the ethical egoism perspective in this, but what you failed to account for was that it might be in your best interest to just remain silent, to let your boss take the credit for it, because then your boss is going to see you as kind of a shining star. At the same time, bosses who tend to do this, right, to use other people's work, once they find the fruit that they can keep squeezing the juice out of, they'll do it, right? So, it's a double-edged sword. If you're willing to do the work and let somebody else take the credit, you better be ready to do it again, because people who use other people tend to do so regularly for their own benefit. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a background on how to complete this discussion board properly. Remember, don't just do the minimum. Don't just respond to 2 of your peers. Don't just do 250 words. Push yourself. Utilize the theories that you're learning, and all that will translate into deeper learning and getting the most for your money in terms of the course content, as well as in the future when you need to speak up for yourself or think through these problems that you'll inevitably encounter in your work and in your lives. Good luck.